the mistakes that you make on different levels are have far-reaching consequences. So I mean, here's the plot of this movie, basically, is this guy made his robot. Great, good job. You did it because you could. You're so smart. Awesome. Oops, you fucked up. You made one mistake. And now that robot is wandering around the world, just wandering around the world. And we don't know what she's about. And
well, and here's the thing. So in theory, in this film, right, let's say that the AI escapes and begins to replicate itself. And that in the media in this movie, now there's an AI problem, right? And they say, well, where could this AI have come from? And then someone says, well, there's a guy who has a lab in the mountains somewhere, and he was developing, AI and that working on that a lot. And it seems to be, when we track where this AI was released, it seems to have moved from this lab slowly around other places.
And they call you a right-wing conspiracy theorist and a racist against AI robots. It would be sexist. They'd say that's sexism because the robot is female. Don't.
Yeah.
And Facebook would penalize you. And then a year later, we'd find out. So, breaking news. The AI
breaking
that is
news.
now
The
your
AI
overlord.
lab. Yeah. The AI lab that's named AI Lab might have been, though we're not sure yet, might have been the origin of the release of the AI.
So this is back to the humility, right? This is back to the humility, which is, once again, expert or not, we are all prone to making very severe mistakes, and particularly with the human capacity to mess around with things that are so much bigger than us, and especially in our modern landscape where things can have such far-reaching consequences. Back in the day, you made a big boo-boo, you killed your town, you killed your village. Maybe you even fucked up your region. But it was a lot harder for things to spread all over the world, to that degree, because it's just the transport and whatever, the time in between, whole different game. Now, even just, the idea of massively destructive weaponry, that's a new thing. Also, that was the scare in the 1950s or whatever, the idea that, oh shit, now the war is not just between country and country. The war could affect the entire world. So as we become more powerful, essentially, our technology does, the mistakes we make are also so much more powerful and far-reaching. And yet, I do not see the development. If anything, I see less humility. And it's a very strange thing. I think I don't know. I really see it with the pandemic and this, believe science. That's terrifying. That's a statement of pure faith, that this idea that this is going to save us. What are you talking about? This is what has caused the problem in many cases. So there's that. But this, there seems to be this human arrogance, and it has a biblical element to it. There's this really old story of the arrogant individual being punished, whether it's by their own hand, by their own folly, finally having to face their own mistakes, or by something larger than them, which is usually in lore or whatever, it's a deity of some kind. But in reality, maybe it's a pandemic, it's something larger than them. So there's that dynamic, and you see this in this movie. You see this in all the kind of the apocalypse movies, whatever. Someone makes a mistake. Oh, Chernobyl, whatever. Here you go. There's a great example of human error, messing around with things that are very powerful and causing serious destruction, and then compounding the destruction because of the inability to kind of rationally deal with our mistakes. Instead, you have all these other things, which is cover it up, or you're not allowed to question that, or you shouldn't be, that's out of your rank, or whatever. All these things that don't match up with our ability to create very powerful, very impactful things. Ooh.